concept was silly, ridiculous, a waste of time. They didn't want. That's why they were so successful. That's why they got away.
I made a living in very dangerous.
This is really an integrated home. Welcome to Dianne Andrews in Black and White, and I'm your host, Dianne Andrews. Thanks for being with us today in the 3 million homes we're in Louisiana and Mississippi. 2 weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. at the Dirksen Senate Building taping whistleblower shows, and we did 4 shows there. I have not been in this studio in a year. I did our mayor, and I went down to her office. I did our district attorney here, Lamore. I went to his office. I did our new chief, not our new chief, but Chief Paul, and I went to his office. And then I've done some anti-gun violence shows in Faraday, Louisiana. I wanted to do something with the political arena in District 14 and talk to the 2 candidates and let you all see the 2 candidates in the forum that they're going to be with me today. I'm going to talk some subjects and ask a few questions, and they're going to answer those questions, or I'll just ask them what they think about a particular subject and give them the open mic to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And I will just go from one to the other and then one to the other, if that's okay with you
It's
too.
perfect.
Okay. Mm-hmm. This is our former state senator, Attorney Cleo Fields. This is our current state representative, Patricia Smith. So I'm going to start, as I said, I just interviewed our sheriff here and Warden Grimes. So let's start talking about gun violence and gun control. I'll start with you, Pat, and let's talk about what you think on the issues that are out there today.
Sure. Well, Dianne, it's so important that, we listen to the dialogue that's going on. And one in particular is we always hear when is the next or where is the next mass shooting going to happen, or where has it happened. And that's so unfortunate that we hear that kind of a conversation about gun violence. But for me, it's so important that we do something about gun control and gun violence. And my ideas are that we need to really have better background checks. So I truly support that. And as the next state senator, that's something that I will be pushing for, as well as looking at how we definitely provide resources to our mental health facilities. But everybody that's in gun violence or in a gun violence situation is not mentally ill.
Right.
We need to understand that because some of them are domestic terrorists. And we need to make sure that we can identify those issues that we have. But I'm a grandmother, I'm a mother. I want to see my children be safe wherever they go. That's why I even put in a bill last year to eliminate bump stocks in Louisiana. We would have been on the cutting edge if we'd done that. But yet the federal did it. The federal did it after that bill was put in. Okay. So I do want to see us as the legislature come forth in this state, even though we respect the right of the Second Amendment, and we know that we're the sportsman's paradise. Right. It's so important that we do have reasonable and sensible gun control in our state.
There's a book that was written by a psychologist, The Boys Crisis. He took an examination of all the mass shootings in the last 2 decades, and all of them were created and performed badly by white boys, except one. And that was the one in San Bernardino, California, where we had the Muslim couple not disparaging Muslims, but just giving facts of what has happened. And in his study, he shows that a lot of these boys were dysfunctional without a father. I hate to go back to something I read, but Dan Quell said the biggest problem in this country is the breakdown of the family.
Sure.
So in saying that, most of them have been white. But let's talk about your views, because in Parkland and in the mass killing in Las Vegas, one of the largest in the country, that man went to California and got the guns legally. Right. We need national, universal gun control laws. Do you think so, Cleo?
Absolutely, no question. First of all, welcome back to your studio. Let's
start with that. Thanks, thank you.
And how was Washington, by the way?
I love D.C. I love Washington.
Well, listen,
I even met Inspector General Horowitz. I
really?
Pictured and interviewed him.
Yeah. The first thing we got to do is make our schools safe. When I was in the legislature, I worked with a gentleman. He was a state representative at the time. He's now a state senator, Troy Carter. He passed legislation that I co-authored called gun-free school zones to make sure that folk do not bring weapons into our classrooms, onto our school campuses. And that was, preceded by a bill that I authored, which was drug-free school zones for for our school campuses across the state of Louisiana. When I was in Washington, I had a chance to vote on the Brady bill.
Because you're a former U.S. representative, yeah.
And the NRA, and I made it very clear to the president, made it clear to members of Congress, I'm from sportsman paradise. They love to hunt in Louisiana, and I'm not for taking people's constitutional rights away from them. But I am totally against assault weapons. There's absolutely, positively no reason whatsoever for people to have assault weapons in this country. Assault weapons, for the most part, are used for one purpose and one purpose only, to kill as many people as possible, as quick as possible. And I say to the NRA, I'm not concerned about the people who use guns to hunt animals. I'm concerned about the animals we have in this country that use guns to hunt people.
Now, isn't there a way to take a weapon and make it into an assault weapon?
That was bump stock.
Yeah, but
And additional.
there's something else now, even with bump stocks being illegal. Isn't there something else they can make an assault weapon out of? Another mechanism? I guess anybody can make it.
Almost take any weapon and make it an assault weapon. A weapon, and it ought to be illegal.
What do you believe, though? Do you believe in universal background checks?
Absolutely. I voted for it when I, supported the Brady bill. I mean, look, we have to keep guns out of the hands of people who do not pass sufficient background checks. Period. Guns are very dangerous. Now, some people argue, well, anything can be dangerous, but we do know that guns are dangerous.
Do you believe there's a big mental health problem as
no question about it. Representative Smith is absolutely right. I mean, there is a very serious mental health problem, not only in this country, but particularly in this state, and we're not doing enough to address it. Look at the mental health facilities we have in this state. It's absolutely asinine.
Many
It's
have been closed over the
unconscionable
years,
Yes.
to have people, identify people who we know have mental health problems, and we don't give them sufficient health care,
Assistance,
sufficient assistance to help them. And that's one of the issues that we have to address in the legislature.
And I just want to add on that since domestic violence is also a part of that gun violence, I was very successful in passing a bill to remove guns from a home where there's been domestic violence cases that have occurred. And we have now...
have you ever used a gun against this person in
the person was probably killed. This when they've been committed, when they've been actually identified as a person that has been... a victim of domestic violence or a perpetrator, then the guns are being removed. We have now put in place rules and regulations for the sheriffs to be able to collect those guns. Once they go through a counseling and if they're convicted, then they don't get the gun back. So it's very important that the state is moving in some direction to at least remove guns from some violent people, but we've got to do a much better job.
Well, let's go to another subject. Let's talk about homelessness. I, in fact, just did a show last week with Dr. Rittard, the state's head epidemiologist, and we talked about the homelessness in California, the increase in typhoid fever, the rat infestation, and the police precinct down in Skid Row in Los Angeles, which has almost 80,000 homeless people just in that city. Austin just passed, the mayor, a law that they can build tents downtown. Of course, California is a very liberal state, but it's 150,000 homeless that they know of in the entire state. Of course, it's 40 million people in California. So I'll start with you. What do you think about the homelessness in our state, the homelessness in Louisiana? What would you do to help prevent or house these homeless people?
Well, let's go back to mental health. I mean, a lot of the problem with homelessness in this state and in this country goes to the big issue of mental health. I mean, we have to provide sufficient mental health treatment for people across this state. It's kind of like drugs, and the drug problem. When I was in the legislature, one of the biggest problems we had was drug treatment. And I said to the folk at DHH, we called it at that time, listen, we can't just tell people just say no to drugs. That's the moron's answer to the drug problem. What we have to do is give them something to say yes to. First, give them a job. Second, when they have a drug problem, you got to give them drug treatment. And we didn't have sufficient drug treatments in this state.
Do we have it now?
No, absolutely not. And we have to do a better job at it. The whole homeless problem, people didn't just wake up and become homeless. There's a process. Some are mentally have mental health issues, some have drug issues, some have unemployment issues, and we have to address the holistic problem. Now,
How do you-
now shelters, Diane, quite frankly, we got to do a better job. The people here in Baton Rouge, they work very hard in housing people, and we have to put more financial state assistance in housing programs for the homeless.
Because California has 10% of the housing that they need, where New York City has 75% that they need. Let me hear your answer to that one.
The homeless problem in Louisiana is an issue that I know we're addressing on many levels. First of all, I just got in fact an email where the mayor is having and the state are getting together to house a summit on looking at housing development in the city of Baton Rouge. But the most important thing is that housing, to me, is not just a drug-related or an issue of mental illness. We have to do a better job for bringing our people home from prison, because they truly cannot find housing. That's one of the most.
I just did a show with
yes,
Chico Yance, and we
yes,
talked about
and
that
we
on
do,
that
and I
show.
do know that that DOC has provided some dollars in from their reinvestment dollars to look at reentry programs that will provide transitional housing for individuals. But it's not. It just can't stop there. It has to be everybody working together. It's not just one entity that has to provide these houses. It has to be the city, the state, our Louisiana Housing Commission, all of those, the HUD program. Everybody has to come together to the table to determine
And as a state senator, I'll ask both
Yes.
how do you plan, how would you
Yeah.
work that, and I'll ask
Well,
you, how would you work?
Sure. Well, this is a start. This is a start. That summit that's going to happen very soon is a start. But also DOC is a start to be able to put money into
Department of Corrections, yeah.
Right, Department of Corrections, to put money into transitional housing, because there is very little. When a person comes home from prison, they have got to have a place to stay. They cannot go just to any place. We've got to have 6 months, 12 months facilities for them to go to, so that they can at least get
Do we have
themselves
anything
situated.
like
We
that
do
now?
have some, but
Okay.
it's not enough, because we're releasing more people very fervently,
With the new criminal
with the new
reform in
rules. So
2017,
we've
yeah.
got to be able to invest more money into those kinds of issues, along with the job training. Once you get a place to stay, because you can't get a job without an address, and that's so everything is a domino effect. So we've got to be able to provide those a parallel kind of programs for
Would you like
people.
to add anything to your
Only that,
last statement?
we have to fund them. I mean, we have to fund these very important programs. I mean, if you walk into the legislature today and you say, do we have a drug problem in the state? Most of the legislators, if not all, will say yes. Do we have a housing problem? Most of the legislators, if not all, will say yes. Do we have a mental health problem? They'll say yes. But when we start talking about the budget, then folks start running. I mean, it's going to be incumbent upon people like me to work with members of the legislature to make those issues priorities in the budgetary process.
And how would you do that? How would you work with them?
By
What do you do?
coalition building. Coalition building. By getting, talking about the problem is one thing, but sitting around the table and putting people together to put money behind the problem is a whole nother thing. Just like I did in Congress. I mean, when I was elected to Congress, it was unheard of, for the most part, for the federal government to give money to local governments to build schools, and I teamed up with Senator Wellstone, and we started the Education Caucus. We convinced the President of the United States of America, listen, if the federal government can build prisons, then why can't we build schools? And we put billions of dollars in school infrastructure, in the federal
Bring up
budget.
schools, and let's make that the next subject
Okay.
that we talk about.
Unfortunately, we haven't had any schools built, though. Not through federal dollars.
That's your opinion,
But,
and I
but
respect
in
that.
Baton Rouge, they haven't. In
Yeah.
Baton Rouge, there have been no schools built through federal
I
dollars.
respect
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is we put billions of dollars in the budget to build schools in America. And that was a good thing, But I had to change the conversation. It was always easy to have the conversation of, let's go build some prisons and lock some people up. It was a tough conversation to have. Well, why don't we just take some federal money and build a school?
Why do you think that mindset, I'll ask both of you all, if you believe that that is the same mindset that Mr. Fields believes, Mr. Smith, that the mindset is we'll spend it on the prison, but we won't spend it on the school system.
Well, actually, the federal government made compacts with states to provide dollars to build prisons, as long as they provided that an individual stayed in jail for 85% or 75% of their time. And so that was once that those, and we started building a lot of prisons. They're money makers. Prisons are money makers. If you look at where our prisons are located in many small towns, the majority of people,
$24.99 a day.
the majority of people, the majority of people who work in the prisons live in those local townships or their small villages.
That's something that Secretary LeBlanc of Public Safety and Corrections has said he wants to change.
Exactly.
And they're working on changing that. I think
definitely.
in 2017
Right.
reform criminal justice.
Yes,
Justice
right.
Act.
And we have to do it with private prisons. Those private prisons that are here in Louisiana, we've closed one. We need to make sure that we're no longer providing dollars to private prisons because they don't provide the same kind of trainings as well as the same kind of amenities that our state prisons provide for individuals who are in prison. So we've got to do a better job
We
of
have
that.
gone from the worst prison
Right.
rate in the country to number 2.
Number 2,
Oklahoma now
yeah,
takes-
number 2,
takes number
Oklahoma.
1,
Yeah.
which, the
Well,
governor
yes.
promised we would not
That's
be number
exactly
1.
right, exactly.
And he did keep his promise with
Yeah,
that, right?
and hopefully we'll go down to number 3
That's
next year.
right.
Right.
Now, let's talk then about schools. I hear a lot of discrepancy between, charter schools versus the PTA versus the charter schools versus all of these fragments in the school system. Do you all believe that that's a big problem, that there's not a cohesive, coalition building among people that care about the education of students instead of how much money I can make on my friend over here?
Right.
Who wants to take that one?
I'll start with it. We do have to change the political climate between the public schools who are considered charters and the public schools who are traditional public schools. I know for a fact that if we pass a bill tomorrow or ask for a bill tomorrow, charters are not going away. They're not going to leave our state. So there's got to be a means of being able to work together, a balance that we have to work together. People are choosing to go into charters. However, we need to have a better means of vetting charter providers. We need to have a better means of providing a balance of the laws that charters are under as well as traditional schools. My main concern...
Charter state by state, I'm going to go to him to be fair on...
No, every state does not have a charter.
Okay,
I have
so
a charter program.
Those are written by this state of
Exactly,
Louisiana.
that's exactly right.
So you all can change this pretty easily.
We could,
Yeah.
we could if the will was there to change it. The will is not there to change it. Because the legislature likes the idea of choice in some instances, and schools are one of them. But my premise with the charter program is that the law, when Mr. Picard put the law in, the law said that charters were supposed to be experimental laboratories providing innovative educational opportunities that could be replicated in our traditional schools. That last part is totally not happening.
What do you think about that?
Well,
Mr.
I
Fields?
just think we need to just stop playing with the minds of our young people in this state. I'm not pro-charter, pro-public, pro-private. I'm just pro-child.
Let me tell you
At
something.
the end of the day, Diane, the question is, be they in a public charter or a public school, the issue for me is, are they learning? Or, are we taking advantage of that young, great mind and developing it? And we have too many of our schools, irrespective of what they're classified as, that are failing our children. We need to invest in education. Need to make sure we pay teachers for the work that they do. It was a good start this last session of the legislature.
That was an increase, right?
Yes, we brought it up.
Increase. But you got to pay people for the work they do. And then you got to demand accountability. And we got to do more in early childhood educations. Kids learn more, they're most vulnerable when they're very young and at a tender age. And we just got to stop having this big debate and fight about public school versus charter school. Let's talk about child. Let's talk about children. Irrespective.
Don't you believe there's always going to be a fight to get to
well,
the
well,
concrete?
There'd be a fight with some legislators.
Right.
But my fight is for that young man, that young lady who's trying to get a quality education. I don't care what you call a school. I just want it to be a good school.
And I too believe that a child should be receiving a quality education no matter where they're going to school. That's so very important. However, when the charter program became as proliferated as it is, what we've done is pitted the schools against each other through the laws and regulations, and that's why the fight occurs. The State Department of Education has to do a much better job, and if they don't do a better job, then you'll always have that fight. But you've got to, as we said, we've got to pay people, not only teachers and staff, which we've done. I promote and will always promote universal early childhood education. 0 to 3 is so important. That's the Jumpstart program is so very important in high school because of the fact that it prepares our young people for work, for the world of work. Some of the charters are doing a very good job at internships for our kids. But in the traditional public schools, Jumpstart is there. It needs to be enhanced with all of the industrial-based certifications that we have, which is now a requirement for young people to have credentials when they graduate. We've got to be able to improve our total educational program for every child that walks through every door.
Let's talk about, there's one sanctuary city in the state of Louisiana, and that is New Orleans, right?
Well, the DOJ said it wasn't.
Well, nobody's a sanctuary city anymore,
That's
right?
DOJ said it wasn't a sanctuary city by
What's
rule.
your thought on sanctuary cities?
Yeah.
Is it you or you?
It doesn't matter.
I often tell people when they get into this whole debate about, where you're from and putting up walls, I mean, we need to have more adults in the room and have real, discussions and conversations, adult conversations about real serious issues. This whole sanctuary city, debate and walls, coming from the highest person, elected person of the land, to me is unacceptable. In the real sense, we're all immigrants.
So you believe that sanctuary cities are a good thing?
Yeah, let's think about it. What are we going to do with people when they come here?
Should we not stop them at the border?
No, I'm tired of people taking advantage of people, and trying to bolster their own political standing in the community with a 30-second soundbite saying, I'm tough on letting people in here, and if they come here, we're gonna treat them like this and treat them like that. No, I'm not. I'm sorry. If you want to vote for somebody like that, don't vote for me, because all of us are immigrants. There are people who are fleeing other countries for political purposes because of the conditions in which they find themselves. And when they find themselves in America, we have to treat them like human beings and not treat them like cattle, separating, mothers and fathers from their children. Unconscionable.
We have a
It's
short time left.
It's almost
I think
like
we got
we
your
are
opinion on this, but let me get
country.
Yeah.
But it upsets me.
I wouldn't have thought this would have been the most
it is.
emotional subject that I had.
It is emotional.
Okay, let's get your opinion on it, because I think we only have about a minute left.
This country was built on the backs of immigrants, and so it's really it is unconscionable to think that we are now saying to people that you have to live in a certain place, and when I see you, I've got to stop you for all these ridiculous reasons just to find out if you're here. Many of those individuals are here providing to the economy of our country, of our city, of our state. Their children are in school. Many of their children were born here. We're separating people in Louisiana. They're scared to death that when their children go to school, that somebody is going to look them up and find out that their parents are not citizens and go and arrest the parents while the kids are in school. We've put fear into individuals on immigration, and that's just so terrible that we have this situation.
I'm going to ask one more question. I did talk about Jumpstart, which was sent to me by Todd, something you wanted to talk about. I will ask you a question, Cleo, and then we're going to end it with this. Why now? Why are you getting back into...
why not now? I mean, I think the time is probably the best time. I mean, when you look at the discourse in our political system nationally, from a national perspective, state perspective, and a local perspective, you almost, I never thought I would live to see the day where you got parents telling their kids not to watch CNN, not to watch the news because they don't know what's going to come out of the president's mouth. Why not now, when we have, about 40% of our schools that are failing right here in this parish? Why not now, when we got people who go to work every day, and at the end of the day, they are still poor because they make $7.15 an hour. And we have not.
You can change minimum wage here in this state if you want to, right?
You can change it with
If the will is there, if the will is there, if the will is there to change
Right,
it.
then that's a
The
state,
will.
and that's what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah. Has that come up in the
Oh,
legislature?
has it come up? Well, lots of times.
But it's voted down.
It's voted down. It doesn't even get out of committee.
Even your bullying,
Exactly.
brought some forth on bullying, and
That's
that
right.
was canceled.
It was canceled down, yeah, because it had non-discrimination of everybody.
I see
Yeah.
that this should have been an hour, 2 shows. I have
Yes.
well, I may not get the opportunity before you
Right.
all go into election, but hey, I wish both of you all luck. You both
Thank you.
gave great answers, and I maybe I shouldn't say this, but both of y'all seem very qualified for the job from the answers that you gave me. You do have some different opinions on things, but some things you all agree on.
Yeah.
And at least the public gets an opportunity to see you from this. Next time we'll have to do a town hall
Right.
meeting and maybe
Sounds
have
great.
have a real debate.
That'd be
If
great.
y'all ever-
That'd be great.
if y'all want to put it together, let me know.
Sounds good.
right.
But thank you so very much for
Thank
inviting
you.
us.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get both of y'all's
Thank
opinion
you.
on these critical
And
issues.
just want to say, I'm not for rent, I'm not for sale, not for lease, I'm unbought in this race.
Thank you, Pat, and
You're
thank
welcome.
you, Cleo.
Thank you.
Come on back to Dianne Andrews in black and white next time.
Excuse me, are you Dianne Andrews?
Yes, I am.
I'm Darius. I'm here to attend your leadership speech.
Oh, thank you for coming. That's wonderful. What's your major? You're in college, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What are you majoring in?
Construction management.
I tell you, then this leadership management speech that I'm going to do will do you a lot of good.
Well, I always watch your show.
Oh, good. I'm on television and YouTube. I appreciate you watching. Are you headed to the event right now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Come on, let's walk together and I can teach you and tell you some things about leadership and management.
Perfect.
Come on, let's go.
How do you see the world?
At Shriners Hospitals for Children, we know that changing how you see things can turn them into
Everyday miracles! Like riding my bike. Breaking boards.
hugging my mom.
Every day for over 90 years, Shriners Hospitals for Children has been sending love to the rescue, regardless of a family's ability to pay.
If you know a child we can help, call or go online now.